Alright, let's go. The Eagles and Commanders square off for round 2, and this time there could be a few new faces. However, thankfully, the Birds survived a scare with late A.J. Brown injury news. Although Washington wasn't as fortunate. Even so, the Commies aren't low on confidence as they made this thing personal after comments ahead of the matchup. Plus, Quinyon Mitchell had Terry McLaurin in prison last time, but why and how did that completely change Washington's offense? So let's talk about that, what'll be different, and just how much this Week 15 matchup impacts Philly's chances for the 1 seed. But first, let's run it. What's up, guys? The Eagles are just about ready to take on Washington for round 2. And not that I needed to tell you, but this game has huge ramifications. Because if the Birds win, there's a very realistic chance that they can win out and finish 15-2. And let's be honest, when you see the ungodly amount of injuries continue to pile up for Detroit mixed with their incredibly leaky defense, I'd be shocked if they go 3-0 in their final 3 matchups. Let's just say, according to the Vegas odds, their chances are pretty slim to win the NFC.
We'd have more luck playing pickup sticks with our butt cheeks.
Okay, we probably shouldn't get ahead of ourselves because, yes, this is a week-to-week league. Heck, just last week, the Commanders won a really close game that came down to a failed 2-point conversion against a Saints B team, which was basically the same thing that happened in Philly when some good fortune and just enough plays eked out a win against Carolina 2 weeks ago. Still, I get it, it's easy to overlook some teams, but ain't no way that's happening against a division rival.
Hey, Scott, how are you feeling? How are you feeling? You're a DMV guy, huh?
I mean, is this what we're going to do? Is this really what we're going to do? I mean, I'm okay. Hey, we'll see. Hey, we'll see you down here in a little bit. That's okay. No, I'm okay. Listen, no joke.
I was just asking, man.
No joke. You guys, everyone knows what you are. They're trying to build down here, but we look forward to seeing you in our neighborhood in a while. I know there'll be a lot of Philly fans in the building.
Philadelphia has been the heavy hitters so far this season in the division, so a great challenge for us, and we're pumped to be able to get them back here at home, the fans, and get rocking.
We didn't give them our best shot round 1, and so round 2 this Sunday.
I get that no player is just going to come right out and admit that their team is worse, but the fact that running back Brian Robinson posted a little bulletin board material probably isn't going to help the Commies. Remember, he said earlier in the week that it feels like Washington is the better team. It's just that they shot themselves in the foot more than anything Philly did to stop them last time. Although maybe I'm biased, but I'd argue that 2 missed field goals and a lethargic offense that basically didn't show up until the 4th quarter was more self-inflicting than anything the Commies had going on. I don't know, either way, just as the Eagles did in their first matchup and finally broke the seal, I think they're about to shut up old B-Rob and put him in his place.
Bend over and I'll show you.
Washington, respect y'all, but y'all know this.
I mean, come on, sure, Washington deserves some credit for what they've done this season, but we're talking about the number 25 run defense in the league, who has to try and slow down the best running attack with the best runner who's also chasing greatness in Eric Dickerson's all-time record. Add on to that the fact that Saquon is free of injury designations, and you can sense he's in for a big day with a mission to get that top seed.
It's big. I've only been to the playoffs once, and I had to travel twice. To go to Minnesota, and it was loud and hectic there, and we had to come here, and it was loud and hectic here. So the reason why, it's not a myth about home field advantage, and it's not a myth about the energy and vibe that you have playing home. So you definitely want to secure that.
By the way, I did see a couple arguments saying that the Commanders' run defense has been much better over the last 3 weeks, which is technically true, but it's a little bit skewed. After all, in both the Titans game and the Saints game, the Commies jumped out to big leads early, which kind of left those squads one-dimensional. However, that shouldn't be the case in this one, given the physical nature of Philly and the weather forecast.
For those of you getting out there tailgating, look at these numbers, between 10 and 15 degrees for tailgating. By the time we get towards the middle part of the game here, wind chills only in the lower 20s. So we're talking about some bitterly cold air. One of the coldest games we've seen in a while. So here's what to expect for our Sunday. Cold for tailgating, you know that. Wind chills in the 20s for the games. Bundle up in layers and be ready for that cold.
Everything starts up front. They got good football players over there. We got good football players here. So it's more so about the will and the want to up front between everybody and just the whole team. Want to go out there, who wants it more, and the more disciplined in the team with the more want to, prevail in this game.
I totally agree, but if it starts up front, then the Eagles have a clear advantage. Plus, if the Commanders play like they did last week against the Saints, then this one will get ugly in a hurry. FYI, for those that may not know, the Saints sacked Jayden Daniels 8 times last week as Washington's line was an absolute mess. Now, the big reason for that was because center Tyler Biadasz woke up on the day of the game with an illness and wasn't able to go. But a week later, Biadasz says that he's for sure playing, and it also seems like right guard Sam Cosmi will be good to go after picking up the illness earlier in the week. which personally I'm happy about, because remember last time after Philly won, all the excuses were Jayden Daniels was injured or more injured than we were told, the Washington were getting tired because of the bye week, and really just all sorts of other kinds of excuses.
That's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous, but you know what else is ridiculous? Underdog for their insane partnered giveaway. Okay, listen up. If Quinyon Mitchell comes up with an interception in this game against the Commanders and the Eagles win, I'll send you a signed Q jersey and a Quinyon Bay hoodie. Just do me a favor and drop a like on this video, and then in order to officially be entered, go down into the comments section and type in Q, where if and when Q gets the pick and the Eagles win, I'll randomly draw for one lucky winner at the end of our game stream on Sunday. Of course, that's just the beginning of the giveaways, because with it being holiday season and Underdog being the official sponsor of the channel, you won't find better discounts, promos, and bonuses than when you scan the QR code and use my code PHILLYSPECIAL. For example, when you sign up with a $5 entry, you'll automatically get a 10% boost token for the college football playoffs. And then after using that token, you'll get a 25% boost token, where you use that one and get a 50% boost, followed by the same process where Underdog will then give you a 100% profit boost. Remember, just sign up using my code PHILLYSPECIAL to get that boost along with a special pick in the lobby and up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Alright, we were close to hitting last week until Saquon got banged up. But this week, I'm doubling down. Give me Brian Robinson over 14.5 rushing attempts, Saquon Barkley to get at least 13 receiving yards, Jalen Hurts to go over 194 passing yards, and yeah, I'm gonna do it. Q finally gets his first INT. So, as I always remind, feel free to join us during the stream so we can sweat out the plays together.
Hallelujah! Holy where's the Tylenol?
Look, I know Jayden Daniels doesn't throw that many picks, but Q was locked down versus Terry McLaurin in their first matchup.
He's a good corner. I think, he plays well. He doesn't really play like a rookie.
Heck, Q literally changed the Commies' offense by how bad he had Scary Terry in prison. A shout out to Nick Waters, but McLaurin had been lined up 86% of the time on the left up until week 11. However, after going one catch for 10 yards, Washington has balanced out McLaurin to nearly a 50-50 split on which side of the field he'll line up. But I get it, Q didn't get a single target last time, so why should there be an opportunity for a pick? Except even with the pure dominance from the last matchup, B-Dog believes the Commies might test him more this week.
When he begins to find the football and pick it, it's going to take us to another level that they literally will not want to throw his side. When he begins to find the ball on the regular and be able to pick those, not just have PBUs, but have interceptions, they will not challenge his side.
Come on, he's got to get a pick one of these days. Anyway, if you want to join the best option in fantasy sports, then scan the QR code, use my code PHILLYSPECIAL, or just click the link in the description to get up to $1,000 in bonus cash. Oh yeah, and by the way, thank you guys for getting the channel to 90,000 subscribers. That's absolutely insane, so I will spin for this helmet during the game stream also. But on the topic of the giveaways, let me also just mention, because I got several comments on the last giveaway that I did, I will never ask you to pay for anything. And if and when you win, I will always use the custom emojis with a personalized message so that you know it's me. So please stay vigilant, protect yourselves, and beware the scammers. Kind of like Vic Fangio played an insane amount of quarters to protect against anything deep in their first matchup against the Commanders. I mean, I don't know if I should feel this way, but I'm not really that worried about Jayden Daniels in the passing game. Heck, the Eagles have the best defense in the NFL, giving up under 14 points a game during their 10-game win streak. Plus, when it comes to him taking off and running, they did a fantastic job the first time, limiting him to 18 yards on 7 carries. And that same defense proved very effective against another running quarterback in Lamar Jackson not too long ago, which is why Vic Fangio doesn't plan on changing much.
Not really. I mean, we need to do what we do best and continue to do that. Obviously, you could play them a little bit different here and there, but if you overdo that, then you're putting your players in uncomfortable positions.
I'll tell you what was uncomfortable, seeing A.J. Brown pop up late on the injury report. Although thankfully, Brown said he's for sure playing Sunday and was seen on the practice field stretching and getting in work Friday. Like, that's always good news, but it especially is seeing that Marshon Lattimore is actually going to play for the Commanders this time. After all, he missed the first matchup, but give him some credit because the 28-year-old played very well in his debut last week against his former team, as he actually wasn't even targeted. Granted, like we said, it's just the New Orleans Saints. But oddly enough, Lattimore has had more interceptions against the Eagles than any other team in the league. So not gonna lie, but I'll definitely be watching that matchup, along with Mike Sanderstill, who I'd imagine would get tested a little bit more than Lattimore. Of course, one impact player on defense the Eagles won't have to face is Jonathan Allen, as Dan Quinn officially ruled him out, citing that it was too quick of a turnaround from the 21-day practice window being activated after he suffered the torn pec. Obviously, he's a tone setter for their defensive line and certainly a blow with him not playing, much like Jalen Carter, who was simply unblockable in the last matchup versus the Commies. I mean, the dude is literally the best player on the best defense in the league. and very clearly made life easier for guys like Josh Sweat and even Nolan Smith in the first meeting between these two sides. Now, as for Bryce Huff, because several people were asking, he won't be making his debut. Although Number Zero did say the surgery really helped his wrist and he's gotten much better range of motion, so should be able to make more of an impact at some point this season. By the way, while we're talking about making impacts, I gotta give a quick shout out to you guys for the donations to Philly area schools. Because thanks to your donations, Thomas and I were able to partner with Eagles Edge Jalyx Hunt to provide new equipment for high school basketball teams in the area, where Jalyx then went and passed him out last week. I mean, come on, there's nothing better than being able to give back, especially around the holiday season. Anyway, with all the recent news and a massive game on the horizon, I had Eagles writer Anthony DiBona back on to discuss all the latest around the birds.
We'll kind of throw a little change up here. If the Eagles get to 15-2, because this is a whole hypothetical that we're playing at this point, if the Eagles get to 15-2, do you think that they get the number 1 seed?
Well, now that the Lions have these injuries that they're dealing with, I mean, David Montgomery and Aleem McNeil, those are two of their most important players on each side of the ball. So I think they could drop potentially maybe 1 or 2 of these last couple games. And if that happens and the Eagles win out, I mean, this next game against the Commanders kind of seems like the biggest hurdle that's really remaining for them down this final stretch. I know it's like the Cowboys and Micah Parsons kind of want to get back at them, but I don't know how realistic that is. So if they can kind of win this game, I feel like there's really nothing stopping them from them finishing 15-2. And then at that point, unfortunately, it's out of their control, but things look favorable for them. So I think they could secure that number 1 seed.
It would be huge. And like you say, Detroit, as everyone continues to get injured and they've had issues and struggles of just trying to be able to honestly field a football team realistically, because every single week it's like, oh, hey, there's another person that's been either out or on the IR or certainly missing a couple games. The Eagles have been fairly healthy and even getting some more guys back. Understandably, Bryce Huff, who had his 21-day practice window opened, he will not be playing against the Commanders, so officially out there, but hopefully back soon, had the wrist surgery. Sounds like it went well and has a little bit more mobility also. But how big of an impact, because this is another question that continues to come. It's like, well, hey, I forgot Bryce Huff was even on this team, right? Because, you just hadn't had him for a while. You had Nolan Smith playing so well. But how much of an impact can he make or will he make, do you think, that potentially, even if it's rotational, but once he gets back into action?
At this point, it's interesting because it just seems like if he does kind of contribute anything positively, it's almost like a gift at this point, which is kind of crazy to say because you would have thought a couple of weeks ago, losing Bryce Huff and then especially losing Brandon Graham, that you would think there would be some kind of drop-off on the edge. And it seems like it's kind of went in the complete opposite direction because Josh Sweat's playing great. Your boy Nolan Smith is maybe the best of them all. And then Jalyx Hunt has kind of stepped up and he's playing 30 or so snaps a game, which nobody really projected him to do at this point. But he's kind of been thrust into action and he's played well. So, I mean, if Bryce Huff can step in and just give them maybe 10, 15 snaps, I would say he would probably eat into Jalyx Hunt's snap a little bit. So where they kind of even each other out, do a route 15 to 20 snaps each, something in that area. If they want to play Jalyx Hunt a little bit more, then that would make sense too. But I just think if he can provide anything at this point, it would be a bonus. So he sure is like they're not using Charles Harris. So it seems like, I don't know if it's been a couple games now and he really hasn't played. So it seems like whenever Huff is going to be activated, then Harris will probably be waived and maybe brought back on the practice squad or something like that. But it seems like I said, if Huff can do anything at this point, it'll just be an added bonus.
It's kind of crazy to say that about a $50 million pass rusher, but we're like at the point of, and it's a great point. It's totally fair, but it's like, if your $50 million pass rusher does anything, it's just an added bonus, but it's because of, and I will absolutely take that, of the Nolan Smith, the impact that he's made, Josh Sweat playing well, as you mentioned, and Jalyx Hunt. So this defense been really good. Still sticking with the injuries, though, there was a minor, I won't call it any sort of, major terrifying scare or anything like that, but just a little minor concern. A.J. Brown popping up on the injury report late this week. The knee injury, limited practice, got into limited practice on Friday. Thankfully, he's good to go. He will play. There's not even a questionable designation, so he will play. But do you see it as any potential impact or significance, especially, I guess I should throw out there, especially because Marshon Lattimore is going to play for the Commanders, and we did not see him in the first matchup.
Well, I mean, I think you have to be a little bit concerned until you see him out there because you saw DeVonta Smith kind of play through the hamstring injury, but he clearly wasn't the same until they kind of gave him that 1 week off, and then he looked much better when he came back. So I think you have to worry about a little bit just until you see him. But at the same time, like A.J. Brown said himself, like earlier when he spoke to the media, he pretty much said, like, listen, at this point, everybody's a little bit banged up. So he's like, basically was saying, like, brushing it off as if it was nothing. But at the same time, it is something that he has to work through, kind of like Jalen Hurts' finger and the ankle that he dealt with earlier this season. But I think when everybody saw his like name pop up and the day before he had just the rest designation, and then all of a sudden that knee injury was on there along with the rest. You're like, wait a second, that doesn't seem right. So I think everybody got a little scared, especially because you see like a guy like Ben Van Sumeren got hurt and lost for the season because of a knee injury suffered in practice. So I guess everybody in Philadelphia kind of just breathed a sigh of relief after he was kind of said that he was good and that he was going to play. But like you said, the fact that Marshon Lattimore is now going to be playing, he made his debut last week for Washington and held his old team. He wasn't even targeted at all in that game. So the fact that he's coming back, and he did play well against A.J. Brown when the Saints played the Eagles in 2022. He only had, I believe, 2 catches for 14 yards when Lattimore was guarding Brown. So he is an upgrade for them at cornerback. And if he is healthy and playing at full strength, I feel like it's going to be a good battle between those two. And that's going to be one of the big notable differences between both teams this time around.
That's a good, I guess, segue into, because I was going to ask you, obviously we were at the game, which was a blast, as always, anytime you get to go see an Eagles game, but certainly a primetime matchup, Thursday Night Football, cold weather, the defense showed out. I don't know that anyone would really want to sign up for another let's wait until the fourth quarter to score 20 points, but they got the win, right? So, I guess whatever it takes. Do you see it as, in terms of the differences, and saying, obviously, for Marshon Lattimore, do you feel like we'll see similarities in this matchup? I guess for a bunch of different phases, but maybe starting out with the trenches is what Jayden Daniels, a number of players, but certainly Jayden Daniels in his press conference was like, that's where it starts. We got some guys, they got some guys. It's going to be a good battle. We saw it in the first matchup, and thankfully Landon Dickerson is healthy, good to go. But do you see it as similarities there? Do the Eagles change up some things? Have they found anything with this empty set that they're using? But especially, you look at this matchup for the Commanders. Is it going to be more of similarities, or do you think there's some bigger differences there?
I think we'll see a couple differences, but I think for the most part, I wrote about it as well. I'm kind of like going in as far as the Eagles offense versus Washington's defense. Even before Lattimore made his debut, they were still a really good pass defense. They've allowed the 4th least passing yards per game this season. So it's not like he's just coming into this defense that was terrible. They were very solid in the air as far as guarding the pass, but their run defense is still very leaky, and that's kind of where the Eagles dominated them in that first matchup. So I would still anticipate the Eagles kind of leaning on Saquon Barkley, letting Jalen Hurts use his legs. He seems a little bit healthier. That ankle injury seems a little bit further in the rearview mirror at this point, where he is moving well. So I think that's kind of where they're going to have to beat Washington. And sure enough, you can target these guys in the air and take your shots, but at the same time, if they're allowing almost 6 yards per carry again, like they did in Week 11 the first time they played, then why not just keep pounding the ball on the ground? But on the flip side, I know they're getting Marshon Lattimore on defense, but on offense, they're not going to have Austin Eckler for sure. They're not going to have Noah Brown for sure, who made plays, and Eckler especially was a key part of why that game was so close the first time around, because of the damage he was kind of doing as a receiver. And then they potentially could not have Zach Ertz. Depends on he's limited. He's listed as questionable, and I'm sure we'll get into that. But it's just, he obviously had that garbage time touchdown down the stretch that kind of made things a little bit closer than they needed to. But I think the Eagles kind of found out in the second half of that game that their ground game was really where they need to rely on. And I think this time around, we'll see them get to that a little bit earlier.
I sure hope so, yes, because it was too often where all of a sudden, we're sitting there in the suite or having the conversation, right, of what's going on? The defense keeps answering the call, but, Jake Elliott's missing field goals. The offense is throwing the football. They're not getting the ground game going. And finally, you get Saquon Barkley. So hopefully, they do lean in that direction. But let's talk about Zach Ertz, because you brought him up, with a concussion, questionable there. Those things are very tricky because sometimes, you'll see, case in point, a limited practice and a guy actually plays. Sometimes it's limited practice and they won't. We got to clear the concussion protocol and make sure they're all good to go. But you look at the past matchup, and outside of the passing game to the running backs, Zach Ertz was really the only other receiving option. So it's a big loss regardless, any team that they're playing, but against this Philly team in particular, what would it mean, I guess, if Zach Ertz is not there?
It'll be huge because he's just been such a reliable weapon, and kind of that besides Terry McLaurin, one of Jayden Daniels' favorite targets this season. So if he's not out, I really like Ben Sinnett and the rookie tight end. I think he's a really good player, but he really hasn't had to do much for them because of how well Zach Ertz is still playing despite his age. But this could be a matchup where they need to rely on Sinnett if Zach Ertz is out, and they might have to get him involved. But I don't think that Terry McLaurin's going to be held catchless again either. So I know he was kind of caught in Quinyon Mitchell last time, but I think they might try to move him around a little bit more, and because I know they like to line up receivers just on one side of the field, and that's it. You kind of deal with them there. But they saw what happened last time, and it didn't really work out. So I think they're going to move Terry McLaurin around a little bit more and kind of try and feed him that way. But at the same time, for the Eagles defense, they allowed the Commanders allowed 8 sacks last week against the Saints, who don't have the best pass rush in the world. So that they're going to have to get rid of the ball quickly with Jayden Daniels, and if Zach Ertz isn't there, then he's going to have to find somebody else to target if Terry McLaurin is locked up. So it's going to be interesting to see how much of an impact that does have if Ertz is out.
Yeah, Jalen Carter was unblockable in the last matchup. And it was a lot of extra focus or having to double team or triple team and still getting past, being a game wrecker. And then, Nolan Smith making some plays, Josh Sweat picking up sacks that way. But I'm curious because, Tyler Biadasz did not play in New Orleans. So, totally fair. Some people being like, oh, well, that was a big impact. It is. It certainly is to not have a starter and a very last minute because he got sick, I believe, like the day of the game. And so then it's like, oh, we're not going to have our starting center. But, as you mentioned, 8 sacks, and it's a Saints team that is not, hasn't been really known for that pressure for this season. So I'm hopeful. You look at the pass rush, it's been better. But if you have the guys being able to go after the quarterback and get to Jayden Daniels, do you think that there's going to be a little bit of a difference? Because this has been another thought that's been thrown out there is, Jayden Daniels was injured last time, right? Like, so it was a fluke. Brian Robinson saying, we're a better team. We believe that we're the better team. It's fine to have confidence. I understand. You put something out there like that, though, and it becomes bulletin board material, and it's like, all right, you don't think that, we're going to go ahead and prove it to you. So, are you buying that? Do you think that there was significant limiters, whether it was injury last time or they just shot themselves in the foot and not as much of Philly beating them? How much change, if any, is there?
Well, I think both teams kind of made mistakes that first time because, like you mentioned, Jake Elliott missed the field goals, and then obviously the Eagles, it seemed like they didn't want to lean on the run until they figured it out in almost the fourth quarter. So, but I do think there's legitimate reasons that Jayden Daniels wasn't fully healthy last time, and he certainly looks healthier in these last couple of weeks, especially last week. He was almost near perfect as far as a passer, and then he added 50 or 60 yards on the ground as well. So it seemed like he was kind of limited that first time they played, and he could be a little bit more mobile this time, which they'll have to account for. But at the same time, I feel like the Eagles defense and Vic Fangio, I feel like I'm so confident in them each week, and Vic Fangio having a great game plan, Christian Parker, Bobby King, just all of these coaches having these guys in the right positions to succeed. So I feel like, and no matter who they play, I feel like you can just be so confident in the defense. So I think kind of see a repeat as far as the final result and who will win the game, but I don't think it'll be that far different as far as Jayden Daniels. If he's healthy, I still think the Eagles will be able to shut him down overall.
Okay, I like it. I feel confident about it. I do as well, but it's just to make sure. And the fact that you've done it kind of as you're mentioning against other mobile quarterbacks, Lamar Jackson being able to shut down of that mindset. It's like, look, Jayden Daniels, he's good, but he's not Lamar Jackson. So, if you've done it already once with Jayden Daniels, even if he was injured, and you've done it to Lamar Jackson, then this defensive unit should be up to the call or be able to answer the call. It's crazy the fact that, it's like the numbers get better and better every week that we record. So it's like, hey, the Eagles defense is top 5. Hey, the top 3, number 1. Now they're number 1 in points per game and yards per game allowed. Before it was just yards per game. And it's just ridiculous because every single opponent, they just kind of up the ante of going like, oh, okay, well, this is what we can do now. Like the 200, I think it's 230 yards allowed since the bye week per game, something like that. That's in today's modern NFL, that just doesn't happen. But it's just crazy the level that they're able to play, and the fact that they continue to just somehow morph into something different each week, or to just kind of, like I say, up the ante each week. I don't know. The sky's the limit, really, for this team. I'll ask you this before we get into official areas to exploit, things like that. But holistically, with this squad, is there any? I mean, is there anything that you can pinpoint, or you would say is a concern for this group? Because some people are like, yes, I know we don't want to blow it out of proportion. It's a week-to-week league. Things can happen. You can have fluke games, not show up or anything like that. But is there any? I don't know. Is there any aspect of it that you go yeah, but if this were to happen, right? This is a realistic potential concern for the unit.
It's funny because I was asked about it too, as far as comparing this team to the team in 2022 that went to the Super Bowl, and which team is better. And even John Marks asked me about it, as far as even going back to the 2017 that kind of won it all. And I said it then, and that was a couple weeks ago, but I still stand by the fact that this defense kind of makes me feel so much more confident in this team as a whole. Because if you look back at those teams, as far as 2022, they had put up 70 sacks or whatever it was, and they were really reliant on kind of the pass rush getting there, and then that would kind of give the secondary these options to make plays in coverage. But this year, they are up there in terms as far as sack numbers, but they're not breaking records as far as in that regard. And that's the way they handle motion and their game plan each week. Even on offense, it just seems like Kellen Moore is adapting and being able to kind of switch things up to where all of a sudden they're utilizing a ton of no huddle, then they're going under center, then they're going like it's just they have all these kind of tricks up their sleeve. They've used the fullback that we've seen a little bit, and they use multiple tight ends, empty formations a bunch last week. So they're really putting it all out there, showing you that they can beat you in all different kinds of ways. And I honestly think as far as from a full talent perspective, and then when you add coaching into the equation too, I think this is the best of those three teams as far as the entire unit. Obviously, it comes down to injury luck down the stretch and if they get the top seed or their matchups in the playoffs. But as far as just my confidence in the team, I think this is the best of those three.
That says, I mean, everything and more on it, quite honestly, if you're saying between them. But I agree. Like, there's just early on in this stretch, you know, you could argue about, well, they haven't played these teams or what. You need a larger sample size. We're so far in the season now. Like, you can legitimately say that. They've stood the test against no matter what team it is. And it's great. It's honestly incredible that we're able to really live here and say, yeah, Vic Fangio took one of almost the last ranked defense, one of the worst against third down, and turned them into the best or the second best against third down, but the best holistically as a defense. It's nuts. Having said that, the advantages, the areas to exploit, things like that, when it comes to this specific matchup, things changing a little bit, not a whole lot, but a little bit between these sides. Do you see any differences where the Eagles can exploit, what they can take advantage of, aside from, obviously, we talked about the ground game there, but anything offense or defense where they can kind of take advantage?
Honestly, it's just that same thing we already said, where it's just lean on the ground game, and then they don't have to. We said it weeks ago where people want Jalen Hurts to put up 250, 300 yards passing. Like, they really don't have to do that in this game. I feel like they'll be able to just rely on Saquon Barkley, even Kenneth Gainwell, where he kind of was a big part in that first game that they won against the Commanders, where Saquon went out and he had 3 or 4 runs in a row where he went 10-plus yards, and it was a kind of the turning point in the game where so we've kind of seen him in recent weeks also make plays. So you can kind of just rely on those two guys, and obviously Jalen Hurts as well on the ground, and just ride that to victory. If that means A.J. Brown and DeVonta Smith only get 30, 40 yards each and whatever, like, I'm sure the media will make a mockery of it, but at the same time, if you win the game, just move forward, and that's it. I feel like at this point, that's all they really have to rely on, and the matches are going to be there to take advantage of. I mean, Jonathan Allen's not going to be playing, and Jeremy Chinn possibly could be out, who is a much more important piece on the running game. Even though he's a safety, he's kind of, they like to almost use him as kind of a linebacker as well. So if he does play, they can take advantage of him in coverage, which is something that's to watch out for because he's allowed a 117 passer rating in coverage. So he kind of covers like a linebacker too, so they could take advantage of him there. So that's just one thing to watch for as well. But like I said, even like you said, with their center being out last week, the offensive line's kind of allowed quite a few sacks this past couple of weeks, and especially last week. So it looks like this is the matchup that's perfectly set up for the Eagles. I know Commanders fans, they want their revenge, and they think that Jayden Daniels is going to make a huge difference this time around because he's more healthy. But I think the Eagles are in a better position too as well.
Okay. I like it. They need to. So would you say then, just staying along those lines, you go back to the Jalen Hurts comment, if Jalen throws for under 200 yards, we shouldn't freak out, right? Like, it's a game we can be like, okay, we're not so bad.
I mean, if it's like last time where they run for 228 as a team or whatever it was, then I don't think people will be complaining. But if he throws for 150 and Saquon only has 50 rushing yards, then people might lose their minds. But at the end of the day, just win and move on. I mean, people will get caught up in how pretty it looks and whatnot, but just win, keep the momentum, carry it into these next two, and then that's it.
Okay. If I put you on the spot and ask you how many passing yards Jalen's going to have, what would you go with?
Just to keep everybody in Philadelphia sane, I'll give him a 210 passing yards. I think they might pass a little bit earlier than we think, and they won't rely on the run right away. They'll use it a little bit, but maybe he'll hit a couple deep passes to DeVonta Smith, who has had his way against Marshon Lattimore in the past. So that's something to look out for if they can kind of get him matched up with Lattimore and move A.J. Brown around a little bit and not just stick DeVonta Smith in the slot. That's something that they could do as well.
Okay, I'll take that. I've got a play going of passing yards over 195 for Jalen Hurts. So the fact that, unprompted, you said over that, I will take it. Having said that, though, moving to the areas of concern, we touched on a potential for a couple, but is there anything in particular that concerning Commanders could exploit, take advantage of on the Eagles side?
So we saw that first matchup with Frankie Louisville in particular, the linebacker. He was kind of giving them fits, especially Jalen Hurts. He got to him a couple of times. They were like, Dan Quinn was kind of calling these perfectly timed blitzes that were kind of throwing the Eagles offense especially off in the first half. So if they do use that at the 8th highest rate as far as man blitzes in the league, but at the same time, Jalen Hurts has been one of the best quarterbacks in the league against the man blitz. But I think it's just going to come down to if Washington can kind of time it up right and take advantage and kind of catch, especially if they go empty formation when Jalen Hurts can't find that quick read and they don't have an extra running back in the backfield to kind of pick up that extra rusher, and that's where they can kind of get in trouble. But like we've said before, Kellen Moore kind of adapts week to week, and we might not see any empty formation all of a sudden this week after seeing a ton of it last week. So it'll be interesting to see what they do in that regard. But I think overall, that's probably what I would look for, is just those blitzes and those extra linebackers coming in and getting to Jalen Hurts too quick and throwing off the timing of the passing game that way.
And no trick plays, right? Like we don't want to do the double reverse pass or whatever that was. We should stay away from that.
Remember in the video you had the men in black? I forgot about it. Yeah, I just
remember
your video. I don't remember the play.
Make sure that Kellen Moore and Nick Sirianni hopefully don't, or maybe they should remember it so that they don't run the play.
Yes.
Yeah, I would say let's just stick to what we know. Be
imagine like first play of the game they do that just to troll us all. That would be hilarious.
My gosh, if it worked, then you know what? Hey, I'd be like, genius. You guys are fantastic. But if he does it and it's the same thing, then I mean, you know, we could all only imagine what that's going to be. Like, are you serious? You really did this thing again?
The last thing the Commanders are expecting is that play again. So might as well just do it the first play of the game and see what happens, right?
It would be crazy. Yeah, you go out there. That's a bold choice. That is a very bold choice if you want to roll out there with a double reverse pass for your first play. But I guess crazier things have happened. Sometimes it's hard too, though. Like, you know, a division opponent, you try to catch them off guard, but they've seen so many things. They're so comfortable or used to, you know, watching the film and having all the similarities there. But the other part to bring up too is like where this thing is trending, regardless of who wins this matchup, is the Eagles. Well, I shouldn't say regardless. I should say where the Commanders are trending is to be the 7th seed. If the Eagles are not able to get the 1st seed, then you could get another rematch, and then it's a 3rd time in a row. Is there any concern there? I guess what would be the concern level for you if you're playing the Commanders a 3rd time? You know, just the vaunted or potentially anxious 3rd game against a division opponent.
I think that kind of goes both ways. I think that's blown a little bit like too much out of proportion, because at the same point, you're saying how the Commanders kind of know the Eagles better, but so do the Eagles. They kind of see them the same amount of times and the same amount of film and whatnot. And we saw them actually beat the Giants 3 times in 2022 on their way to the Super Bowl. So, I mean, they've done it before. I mean, granted, I think this Commanders team has a little bit more talent on offense, and I think Jayden Daniels is a much more dynamic quarterback than Daniel Jones was back then. But at the same time, I feel like Vic Fangio kind of has rookie quarterbacks numbers. I think he has a 7-2 record against rookie quarterbacks in recent years, and they're doing well. The Eagles haven't lost to a rookie quarterback in years, so I think I saw something like that as well. So it just seems like they're in a good position as far as if they do have to play them a 3rd time. I think Philadelphia can kind of take advantage of that matchup. I don't think they would necessarily be scared, because it's hard to beat a team 3 times in one season. Nick Sirianni kind of has this team locked in where they're not really listening to the outside noise. We've seen all the clips from his meetings and how they handled the drama from last week, and they just seem like they're just ready to move forward. They're really taking it in like this one game at a time mentality. I know it's boring and to hear as fans, and he's kind of giving these vanilla press conferences, but it's kind of what this team needs as far as all the outside noise and just disputing that and not letting things get out of hand like it did last season. So they're doing a great job, and I think if they do have to play them a 3rd time, they'll be just fine.
Okay. I could see that. Yeah. You make a fair point also. Like, it is the easy take or the traditional take of like, oh, it's the third matchup. And it's hard to beat any team 3 times in a row. But like you say, it's also similarities for the Eagles side. So that's fair. And you've been spot on, you know, for some other predictions, we should say, or very close. This is the touchdown, first touchdown prediction there. This is my plea, really. I mean, if there's any underdog, employee or decision maker, I've tried to push this as well, but it feels like we should have like a separate show or podcast for just like the betting props at this point, because last week we predicted the first touchdown scores for each team. It was just out of the inappropriate. Like I had the AJ Brown, and then you were going with
Freiermuth.
Yes, Freiermuth. Yeah, and so you hit it. It was just the reverse order. But then the crazy thing is, it happened the same way in the Baltimore game, because we both picked the tight ends. And in the Carolina game, you had picked what was that one? That was you took. You took Chuba Hubbard for that one, right? So you got those, yeah. And then Saquon was the other one. The that you
was an
were
inch
like
short.
super close. So it's almost every single week, which is why, naturally people want to know, because people are gamble responsibly. I should make this disclaimer. You should be like on the side, but gamble responsibly. But people want to know what prediction you're going with for the first touchdown score in this game.
All right, this might be a little bit out of left field, and but people will be happy because it's an Eagle this time.
Okay,
but it's not AJ Brown, not DeVonta Smith, not Saquon Barkley, not Jalen Hurts. It's not Jahan Dotson.
Oh, I was going to say, is it revenge Jahan Dotson game? Oh my gosh.
I'm going back to my roots, and I'm picking another tight end. I'm going Grant Calcaterra because Washington has allowed a tight end to score a touchdown in 2 of their last 3 games. Grant Calcaterra caught his first career touchdown just 2 weeks ago. He caught the first pass of the game last week. So I'm going with that first trend for Grant Calcaterra, and I think they'll march down to the red zone, and he'll get the touchdown this time for the first score in the game.
Wow, I love it. Stay tuned and obviously be watching, because it's uncanny how many times Mr. DiBona here has gotten these accurate predictions. Of course, follow Anthony at DiBona NFL if you're not already, because he'll share a lot more tips and info and everything else on Twitter or X, whatever we want to call it these days. I will go with first touchdown score. I thought about a couple different ones here. I'm going to stay, and this might be just an easy pick or play, who knows, but I'm just going to say Saquon. I think it's, they stick with what works. As you mentioned, the Washington run defense. I'm not going to get cute with it as far as touchdowns go, so I'll take Saquon for first touchdown score.
I took Saquon. I was going to take him again, but I was like, I took him two weeks ago. Let me not lean on him too much. Let me just have a little bit of fun. So I started looking into what they've allowed recently, and when I say, hey, let's go with tight end and see what happens.
I can appreciate that. It's funny, too, because we don't talk about this beforehand, and I keep feeling like at one point we may take the same person, but we haven't yet. So, one of these days, who knows? If we do, then that's got to be like an automatic lock. Like if we ever say, hey, it's that guy, then it's going to be the one person.
Or it's an automatic loss. Maybe that'll jinx it.
It's true. Maybe we should never,
It's bad,
take one of these bets. One of these should hit. Okay, the other one obviously is the score predictions, which we've gone with there. We're feeling confident. Some people saying, "Hey, look, it's a 3.5 point spread. Totally get it. Very cold game. It's going to be like in the 20s, I believe, the early morning, maybe even the teens." Shout out to you. Unfortunately, you're going to be braving the elements, but good on you, sir. For those that are out there playing in the game, it should be chilly. So maybe a running type of game. Is it more of a shortened game? Do you see a lower scoring game? What are you going with for predictions?
So I feel like I've predicted around this score in almost every week recently, but I'm going to go Eagles 28, Commanders 20. I think the Eagles will keep their streak alive of holding opposing teams to 20 or less, but the Commanders are going to get right there, but the Eagles are still going to get a comfortable 8-point win.
Okay. I'm very similar, actually. I've got 28-23, so I'm going to stick with
you have them breaking the streak.
I know, but it could be a defensive touchdown. I don't know that I want that. I don't know.
No, you don't.
Do I?
That's gonna be the whole talk of the week if that happens.
So either one, I guess. So I should just back it down to 20 and be like, okay,
just copy me. 20. It's no.
20.
Go with it. Stick with it. Stick with it.
I said 28-23 on Wednesday. I'm gonna stick with 28-23. I would be perfectly happy if I'm wrong. I just I'm gonna say 28-23. So those of you watching, we appreciate you always. Let us know in the chat. Comment what your score prediction is. Let us know what you think, what you agree with, what you disagree with, respectfully, of course, but we appreciate all you guys. Eagles looking to get another win in the win column. Keeping track, keeping pace with Detroit. Maybe Detroit loses. Do you think? I'll end it with this. Do you think Detroit loses against Chicago?
No.
Yes, no? No.
Sorry, no.
All right, well, there's other games. There's more hope. I agree with you, too, so I was just hopeful. Maybe insert that out there, but anyway, appreciate it, man. It's always a blast to record, and appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, it's always fun, and maybe the Eagles, this will be their 11th win in a row if they keep a streak alive. My birthday was just passed on December 11th, so maybe the 11-11, something's going on there, but we'll see.
Oh, okay. I mean, I'll take any type of tinfoil hat or whatever we need to do to make this thing work. So you sold me.
There you go. Or I just jinxed it. So if they lose,
well, then it's your fault. Yes. So everyone knows who to blame. Blame Anthony if that happens. But
I'll take
anyway, we appreciate you guys as always. You know what it is. Go Birds.